How often do we think we understand the people around us, only to be caught off guard by their behavior? The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene dives into the psychology behind human actions, revealing patterns we often overlook. Many people are critical of the author, believing his books reveal uncomfortable aspects of the darker, more manipulative sides of human nature. Greene argues that if we want to navigate life successfully, we must confront these realities head-on. After all, we're surrounded by people and interact with them every day. Success in life depends on understanding human behavior. Law 1. Master your emotional self. The Law of Irrationality. We like to think of ourselves as rational beings, but the truth is far less comforting. Human behavior is driven more by emotions than by logic. Robert Greene forces us to confront this unsettling reality. Beneath the surface, our actions are often irrational, clouded by emotions we barely recognize, let alone control. He argues that if we want to navigate life successfully, we must first master our emotional selves. The uncomfortable truth is that our biases, insecurities, and fears drive many of our decisions. Whether it's confirmation bias, leading us to see only what we want to see, or the superiority bias, convincing us that we're better than others, these unconscious patterns govern our behavior. Greene lays bare these biases, encouraging us to recognize the grip they have on our lives. An excellent example of mastering one's emotional self comes from the Athenian leader Pericles during the 5th century BC. As tensions with Sparta rose, Athens was gripped by fear and a desire for immediate retaliation. The citizens demanded war, driven by panic and anger. However, Pericles remained calm. He understood that acting on these emotions would lead to disaster, as Sparta's strength was in land battles. Instead, he proposed a defensive strategy, leveraging Athens' naval superiority and avoiding direct conflict. Though unpopular at first, Pericles' ability to rise above the emotional frenzy saved Athens from an early defeat. His leadership demonstrated the power of mastering emotions to make rational, strategic decisions in times of crisis. To master your emotional self, Greene recommends becoming aware of your emotional impulses and the biases they create. By learning to recognize and neutralize their influence, you can think more clearly and make better decisions, especially under stress. Taking the time to reflect before reacting is key to navigating emotionally charged situations rationally. Law 2. Transform self-love into empathy. The Law of Narcissism. Narcissism lies at the core of human behavior. We all crave attention, admiration, and validation, but Greene warns us this insatiable hunger can twist into something much darker. The self-absorbed seek to bend the world around them to serve their needs, blind to the damage they inflict on others. In the book, Greene gives an example of Joseph Stalin as a deep narcissist. Stalin's paranoia and desire for control led to one of the bloodiest regimes in history. Those closest to him were not companions, but pawns, manipulated and discarded whenever they ceased to be useful. This is the extreme end of narcissism, where self-love transforms into a destructive force, consuming everyone in its path. However, not all narcissists are so blatant. Many mask their self-interest behind a facade of concern or charm. Functional narcissists can channel their self-focus into productivity, but Greene insists that we must be wary even of them. We must learn to spot these subtle manipulators and protect ourselves from their influence. The antidote to narcissism is empathy. To truly connect with others, we must go beyond words and focus on body language, tone, and the emotional signals people give off. Empathy allows us to see through the masks people wear and understand their true motivations and desires. Greene breaks empathy into 3 types: visceral empathy, feeling what others feel; analytic empathy, understanding someone's background and values; and empathic skill, learning through observation and feedback. In a world full of narcissists, empathy helps us form genuine connections and protect ourselves from manipulation. Law 3. See through people's masks. The law of role-playing. People tend to wear masks that show them off in the best possible light. Humble, confident, diligent. They say the right things, smile, and seem interested in our ideas, but beneath the surface, many hide their true intentions. However, these masks often crack, and through nonverbal cues, facial expressions, body language, and subtle gestures, people reveal their true feelings. One powerful example of seeing through such masks is found in the work of Milton Erickson, a pioneer in hypnotherapy. In August 1919, Erickson awoke to find his body paralyzed due to polio. Though bedridden, he began to focus intently on the subtle nonverbal cues of those around him, his family members. He quickly realized that people's words often didn't match their emotions. For instance, one of his sisters would say yes to a suggestion, but her body language, such as a smirk or monotone voice, suggested the opposite. Erickson observed these discrepancies and discovered that people continuously leak their true emotions, even when attempting to conceal them. Over time, Erickson became a master at reading these subtle cues and understanding the hidden motivations behind people's words. Through this example, Greene emphasizes that mastering the ability to read nonverbal signals allows us to see through the masks people wear and uncover their true intentions. Law 4. Determine the strength of people's character. The Law of Compulsive Behavior. People's true nature is not revealed by their words, but by their actions, especially under pressure. Greene warns us that many people live their lives driven by compulsions they barely understand, much less control. Their behavior, when examined closely, forms a pattern, and that pattern is their character. Take Howard Hughes, for example. Born into wealth, Hughes was a shy and awkward boy who became a highly aggressive and rebellious young man after the deaths of both his parents. He gained fame as a businessman, movie producer, and aviation pioneer, but his compulsions ultimately led him down a path of self-destruction. Hughes became obsessed with control over his businesses, his movies, and his personal life. His behavior grew erratic and compulsive, with Hughes becoming increasingly paranoid and reclusive. Over time, he isolated himself in hotel rooms, consumed by strange rituals and obsessions, and his business empire began to crumble. His compulsive need for control, coupled with a deteriorating mental state, eventually led to his downfall, showing how a person's inner compulsions can wreak havoc when unchecked. Greene urges us to observe how people behave over time, especially when they're under stress, because it's in those moments that their true character is laid bare. If we fail to assess someone's character accurately, we risk being blindsided by their compulsive tendencies. Weak characters crumble under pressure, taking others down with them, while strong characters adapt and thrive. The lesson is clear. The more we understand the compulsions that drive people, the better equipped we are to protect ourselves from their destructive behaviors. Law 5. Become an elusive object of desire. The Law of Covetousness. Human desire is endless and impossible to satisfy. Greene reveals that what we desire most is what we cannot have, and those who understand this can wield immense power. People want what is rare, what is elusive, what they cannot possess easily, and the more we chase after something, the more it slips away. For example, Michael Jackson carefully orchestrated his public image to become an object of perpetual desire. He recognized the dangers of overexposure, so he spaced out his album releases and kept his public appearances scarce, fueling public anticipation. Jackson allowed rumors to swirl, such as his use of a hyperbaric chamber to maintain youth, without confirming or denying them, further fueling intrigue. His mystique grew as people obsessed over him, not just for his music, but for his elusive and mysterious persona. Greene points out that this is not about being fair or virtuous. It's about understanding the nature of power. In a world full of pursuits, the real power lies in controlling what people seek. By becoming the object of their desire, we take control and gain influence over them. In addition, by understanding that human desire is endless and impossible to satisfy, Greene warns us to be aware of the "grass is always greener" syndrome. The feeling of dissatisfaction can push us to strive for improvement and reach higher goals. But chronic discontent can also be a trap, leading to wasted time and energy as we constantly chase new things without ever feeling fulfilled. The key is recognizing when the pursuit becomes meaningless. The only way to find peace and focus is by developing a deeper understanding of your reality and being grounded in it. By mastering this understanding, you can better control your desires rather than letting them control you, or worse, allowing others to exploit them against you. Law 6. Elevate your perspective. The Law of Shortsightedness. Short-sighted thinking is one of the most dangerous flaws in human nature. Greene exposes how people, driven by immediate needs and desires, make decisions that lead to long-term ruin. We live in a world obsessed with the immediate, but true power lies in the ability to see beyond the moment and consider the far-reaching consequences of our actions. A powerful example of short-sightedness is Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. The goal of the attack was to cripple the U.S. Navy and prevent the United States from interfering in Japan's expansion throughout the Pacific. However, the attack had the opposite effect. Instead of demoralizing the U.S., it rallied the American public and led to the full mobilization of U.S. military power. Ultimately, the attack on Pearl Harbor resulted in Japan's defeat in World War II. What seemed like a strategic victory at the moment turned into a catastrophic failure in the long run. Greene forces us to confront this harsh truth. If we focus solely on short-term gains, we are doomed to long-term failure. To succeed, we must elevate our perspective, learn to think in terms of years, not moments. Law 7. Soften people's resistance by confirming their self-opinion. The Law of Defensiveness. Have you ever noticed how people get defensive when they feel attacked or criticized? It's natural. Greene's 7th law tells us that if we want to influence others, we have to make them feel valued and respected. By confirming their self-worth, you're essentially lowering their defenses, and that's when persuasion becomes a lot easier. Think about it. We live in a competitive world, and people are always on guard, protecting their interests. If they feel like you're trying to manipulate or criticize them, they'll resist. But if you make them feel like they're in control, like they're acting out of their own free will, suddenly they're way more open to hearing you out. Lyndon Baines Johnson, the 36th President of the United States, was a master at this. Johnson had an incredible ability to make people feel important, regardless of their rank. He'd engage in flattery, complimenting political allies and even opponents in subtle ways. By doing this, he made people feel appreciated, which helped him win them over, even if they started off disagreeing with him. So what's the trick here? Never attack people for their beliefs or intelligence. Instead, make them feel noble, like they're doing something good. When people feel secure in their decisions, they're more likely to cooperate with you. By creating that feeling of mutual warmth, whether in business or personal relationships, you can disarm their defensiveness and create smoother, more cooperative interactions. Law 8. Change your circumstances by changing your attitude. The Law of Self-Sabotage. Many of us unknowingly sabotage ourselves by the way we interpret our circumstances. Greene explains that people often trap themselves in patterns of self-sabotage due to a fixed mindset. We become prisoners of our thoughts, making the same mistakes repeatedly, unable to see beyond our perceived limitations. Take the story of Anton Chekhov, a 19th century Russian playwright. Chekhov came from a poor and dysfunctional family. It would have been easy for him to adopt a victim mindset, to believe his tough circumstances would dictate his future. But instead, Chekhov flipped the narrative. He saw his struggles as a source of strength and turned his suffering into creativity. Chekhov's ability to reframe his mindset helped him rise above his circumstances. He didn't let his background define him. Instead, he used it to fuel his work, creating stories filled with empathy and insight. By shifting his perspective, Chekhov escaped the cycle of self-sabotage and transformed his life. What's the takeaway? We all have the power to change the story we tell ourselves. The ultimate freedom comes from understanding that your attitude shapes your reality. When you embrace a positive mindset, you attract new opportunities. But if you're stuck in a negative loop, projecting fear and hostility, you'll sabotage your relationships and your own success. Change your mindset, and you'll change your circumstances. Law 9. Confront your dark side. The Law of Repression. Every person has a darker side. Those emotions and desires we prefer to hide from others and even from ourselves. Greene explains that repressing these feelings doesn't make them go away. It only buries them deeper, where they fester and grow. Eventually, these repressed feelings surface in destructive ways, often when we least expect them. Look at Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States. Nixon's paranoia and insecurities haunted him throughout his career. Instead of confronting his fear of losing power, he suppressed it. This repression led to increasingly secretive and unethical actions, including spying on political rivals, which eventually resulted in the Watergate scandal. In 1972, members of Nixon's re-election campaign were caught breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters. Rather than take responsibility, Nixon attempted to cover it up with lies and manipulation. As the scandal unfolded, it became clear that his fear of losing control led to his downfall, ultimately forcing him to resign from office in 1974, the first U.S. president ever to do so. Greene warns that repressed emotions often leak out in contradictory behavior, emotional outbursts, or flat-out denial. To prevent this from happening, we need to recognize our own dark side. Instead of pretending it doesn't exist, we need to understand and manage it. By acknowledging our inner fears, jealousy, and desires, we take control of them, rather than letting them control us. Once you confront and integrate these darker impulses, you'll become more authentic and complete. And here's the bonus. People will sense that authenticity. They'll be drawn to your honesty and strength because you've done the work to know yourself. Law 10. Beware the fragile ego, the law of envy. Let's be honest. Envy is one of those emotions we all feel but never really want to admit. It sneaks up on us when we start comparing ourselves to others and feeling like we don't measure up. And when envy goes unchecked, it can quietly sabotage relationships and your own happiness. Take the American writer Gore Vidal, for example. Vidal once said, "Every time a friend succeeds, a little part of me dies." That's envy in a nutshell. Instead of celebrating the success of others, Vidal let envy consume him, poisoning his relationships with his peers and preventing him from finding true happiness in his own accomplishments. So how do we handle envy? Greene suggests using envy as motivation instead of letting it eat away at us. Rather than resenting others, we should learn from their success. Focus on improving yourself instead of constantly comparing yourself to others. When you acknowledge envy, you strip it of its power. It's no longer silently influencing your actions. Instead, you can use that energy to fuel your drive for self-improvement. Law 11. Know your limits. The Law of Grandiosity. Success can be a tricky thing. Sure, it feels great in the moment, but it can also lead to grandiosity, an inflated sense of self. Greene calls this the success delusion, where a small taste of success makes you think you're untouchable. But that inflated view can make you lose sight of reality, leading to bad decisions and ultimately failure. Think about it. After achieving something big, it's easy to think it's all because of your talent, but we often forget the role luck, timing, or even the help of others played. Greene warns us to stay grounded, to reflect on what really contributed to our success. Was it really all your doing, or were there other factors at play? The antidote to grandiosity is simple. Stay humble. After each success, take a step back and think about the external factors that helped you. Ask yourself, was it all me, or were there external influences that played a role? Keeping a realistic assessment of your strengths and limitations will prevent grandiosity from undermining your future achievements. Law 12. Reconnect to the masculine or feminine within you. The Law of Gender Rigidity. Here's something we don't think about often. We all possess both masculine and feminine qualities, shaped by genetics and the influence of the parent of the opposite sex. However, society encourages us to over-identify with either the masculine or feminine role expected of us, which leads to rigidity. This rigidity limits our potential as we suppress important aspects of our character to fit societal norms. Greene argues that to unlock our full power and creativity, we must reconnect with those lost or underdeveloped qualities, whether they are masculine or feminine. By integrating these traits, we can become more fluid in our thinking and action, breaking free from rigid gender expectations. Caterina Sforza, an Italian noblewoman from the 15th century, exemplifies this balance. When her family's castle was under attack, she first used her feminine charm to manipulate her enemies, feigning weakness to lull them into complacency. However, when it was time for action, she displayed a masculine, warrior-like spirit by leading her troops in combat, defying gender norms of the time. Sforza's ability to blend both qualities made her a formidable leader who could navigate the expectations of her era while maintaining her power. By reconnecting with the neglected aspects of our nature, we become more authentic and powerful. We free ourselves from rigid roles and unlock creative potential, which allows us to lead and live more effectively. Law 13. Advance with a sense of purpose. The Law of Aimlessness. Humans, unlike animals, rely on conscious decisions to guide them through life. Without a clear sense of purpose, we often drift, pulled in different directions by moods, opinions, and external pressures. This aimlessness leads to frustration and a feeling of disconnection from our true selves. We may find ourselves asking, "How did I end up here?" To avoid this fate, we must discover our true calling, something that provides direction and meaning in our lives. A perfect example of this is Martin Luther King Jr. King grew up in a comfortable environment with his father, a pastor, who had high expectations for him to follow in his footsteps. However, King realized his true calling was broader than the pulpit. It was in the civil rights movement. Despite having the option to lead a more comfortable life, King felt a deep pull toward his mission for justice. This sense of purpose became the driving force of his life, helping him endure the many challenges, threats, and setbacks he faced. Even in moments of doubt, King found clarity in his mission. For example, as the leader of the Montgomery bus boycott, he faced opposition and threats, including a bombing at his home. His purpose gave him the strength to persist, turning failures into lessons that made him stronger. To discover your purpose, Greene suggests identifying your natural inclinations, surrounding yourself with purposeful people, and creating smaller goals that lead to your larger mission. In a world full of distractions, a strong sense of purpose will guide you, helping you overcome challenges and achieve lasting success. Law 14. Resist the downward pull of the group. The Law of Conformity. Humans naturally conform in group settings, unconsciously mimicking others' behavior, beliefs, and emotions. While this helps us fit in, it can lead to a loss of individuality and critical thinking. Greene warns that in a group, we often take irrational risks, act on group emotions, and gradually lose our sense of self. This social personality can dominate, leaving us more concerned with fitting in than thinking for ourselves. The key to resisting this pull is self-awareness. Recognize how you change in groups and develop what Greene calls group intelligence. This means observing group dynamics, understanding the influence of emotions like fear or excitement, and maintaining your independence. Instead of simply going along, question group decisions and offer rational alternatives, earning respect through your thoughtful contributions rather than blind conformity. Additionally, understand that the need for status and belonging drives many to conform. Embrace these needs by excelling in your work and steering the group in positive directions, but always maintain your own values and critical thinking. By staying calm when others are anxious or impulsive, you can influence the group subtly, leading with reason. Ultimately, the goal is to fit into groups strategically without losing your individuality. By staying grounded, independent, and observant, you'll rise above groupthink, leading from within while keeping your true self intact. Law 15. Make them want to follow you. The Law of Fickleness. People are naturally fickle. One day, they may admire you. The next, they could lose interest or even turn against you. To maintain loyalty, you must establish a sense of authority. But here's the catch. Authority isn't something you achieve once and rest on. It's a dynamic, ongoing process. You need to constantly prove yourself and create an aura of strength, legitimacy, and fairness. Leadership is a delicate balance. Although people want to be led, they also want to feel free and secure without making sacrifices. If you present yourself as their equal or friend, They may begin to doubt your strength and view you with hidden contempt. Authority comes from projecting confidence, decisiveness, and demonstrating that you serve the group's interests. The entitlement curse is a dangerous trap for leaders. Feeling that people owe you loyalty or respect simply because of your position leads to laziness and complacency. A true leader must cultivate empathy, but never become overly pliant to the group's desires. The key is to project strength and vision while continuously earning respect through hard work, self-discipline, and high standards. To inspire loyalty, develop a clear vision for the future. Demonstrate that you are working for the greater good and lead by example. Whether by setting the highest standards for yourself or making personal sacrifices for the group, your followers will remain loyal if they see you as indispensable and in control. Authority is not about being liked. It's about creating lasting influence and being a leader people want to follow. Law 16. See the hostility behind the friendly facade, the law of aggression. Not all aggression is obvious. In fact, much of it is hidden behind friendly smiles and polite behavior. Sophisticated aggressors use indirect, calculated forms of aggression, relying on subtle intimidation, manipulation, and psychological tactics to wear down their opponents. Unlike primitive aggressors who display overt hostility, these individuals mask their true intentions behind charm, politeness, or rationality. They exploit the fact that most people dislike confrontation, using this to gain power and control. A historical example of this is John D. Rockefeller. While Rockefeller appeared calm and cooperative, he strategically manipulated his competitors. He would offer small oil refinery owners deals that seemed mutually beneficial, but in reality, he had already created market conditions that guaranteed their failure if they refused. His rivals believed they were making free choices, but Rockefeller's subtle aggression left them no real alternative. His calm demeanor masked his ruthless tactics, allowing him to dominate his competitors without direct confrontation. To defend against such sophisticated aggressors, it's crucial to remain calm and avoid reacting emotionally. Emotions can cloud your judgment, making you more vulnerable to their manipulation. Instead, focus on understanding their true motivations and vulnerabilities. By analyzing their tactics, you can avoid being drawn into their games. Rather than confronting them head-on, stay strategic and watch for moments when their hidden aggression reveals itself. In relationships, business, and social interactions, recognizing the signs of subtle aggression gives you a strategic advantage, allowing you to protect yourself and turn their tactics against them. Law 17. Seize the historical moment, the law of generational myopia. Each of us is shaped by the generation we are born into. Your generation defines your worldview, values, and ambitions more than you might realize. Generations often seek to separate themselves from the past and establish new ideals, but they also fall into patterns of reaction where each generation either rejects or embraces aspects of the previous one. To truly succeed, you must understand the deep influence of your generation and the times you live in, then go beyond it. The author cites King Louis XVI of France as an example. Ascending to the throne in 1774, he represented a new generation with the potential for reform. However, he failed to recognize the significant changes in France, including the rise of the middle class and increasing unrest. Clinging to absolute monarchy and a rigid social hierarchy, Louis neglected the growing demands for representation and reform. Instead of embracing the Enlightenment's emerging ideas of liberty and equality, he adopted a defensive stance, believing that preserving the status quo would maintain his power. This refusal to adapt alienated the populace and fueled widespread discontent, ultimately leading to the French Revolution and his downfall. To avoid this, you must cultivate generational awareness, an understanding of both your generation's spirit and the larger historical patterns that shape society. Recognize how collective moods and social trends shift and be ready to capitalize on them. Heroes and cultural icons often signal the values your generation secretly desires. By analyzing these, you can position yourself ahead of the curve, setting trends rather than following them. Push against outdated ideas, adapt to current trends, and even create new social configurations that resonate with your generation. Success comes from sensing the subtle shifts in the collective mood and using them to your advantage. This allows you to stay ahead of change rather than being overwhelmed by it. Law 18. Meditate on our common mortality. The law of death denial. Most people spend their lives avoiding the thought of death, but rather than denying it, we should keep the reality of death in mind. Understanding how short life is gives us urgency to focus on what truly matters. By confronting death, we gain perspective, allowing us to manage life's challenges with a sense of proportion, knowing that many of our worries are trivial compared to the inevitability of mortality. Flannery O'Connor, the famous American author, offers a powerful example. Diagnosed with lupus at 25 and told her life would be shortened, O'Connor embraced her illness and focused intensely on her writing. Instead of seeing her condition as a limitation, she used it to sharpen her creativity and deepen her work. O'Connor's proximity to death intensified her writing and gave it a depth that resonates to this day. Her awareness of her limited time didn't make her rush. It made her more mindful. For her, death wasn't something to fear, but a reminder to live fully, with purpose. Her writing reflects this, revealing deep insights into human nature and the complexity of life. Reflecting on death also helps break the illusion of superiority that separates us from others. Death is the great equalizer connecting us all. Recognizing this fosters empathy and a deeper connection with others. The paradox is that contemplating death makes us feel more alive, heightening our awareness of every moment. By making death a familiar presence in our thoughts, we stop delaying our dreams. We act with purpose, focusing on what truly matters. Meditating on mortality helps us live a more meaningful and connected life with greater intent. If you've enjoyed this exploration of human nature, be sure to subscribe so you can join us as we explore transformative ideas that inspire growth, learning, and success in all areas of life. And if there's a topic or book you'd like us to explore, feel free to leave a comment below. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.